I want to say welcome, everyone. It is great to have you here on Tea and Tech this week. Great to see you all again. I do very much enjoy our weekly conversations. Our featured guest this week is Matt Eland. So excited to have you here, Matt. And I'd love to just have you introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Thanks, Michael. Happy to be here. I always love my tea and tech, so it's nice to combine them. I am a software engineering instructor at Tech Elevator's Columbus campus. So we have some Cincinnati attendees here today, but as an instructor, kind of my job is to teach C# or Java, and then SQL, databases in general, specifically relational databases, JavaScript, Vue.js, and really help mentor students as well with things that would hurt them on their job search, help them as they're pursuing side projects, etc. And I love it. I've been doing it for a year now. Just had my first yearly review today. It's a lot of fun. Before that, I was in a lot of software as a service development, doing primarily C# and JavaScript. I'm working with .NET since it was in beta 2 back in 2001. Like that sort of stuff. I'm the guy who kind of grew up coding. I've been coding since I was about 7. And I really love it. I love building stuff. I love seeing all the pieces fit together and seeing what nerdy stuff I can make. But what I found was about 5 years ago, it's like, I really love mentoring people. I really love them seeing them love the things that I love, and seeing all the little nerdy stuff or less nerdy stuff, but the awesome stuff that they build. And just to be able to encourage that and just say like, hey, what you did is really cool. Or, hey, there's this library you may want to look into, or something like that, you know? And that's kind of where I've been these last 5 years. And so I've been tiptoeing closer and closer towards, hey, let's get involved in the community. Let's work on the communication skills. Let's invest more and more just to see if teaching might be right. And last year I made the plunge, and it was weird because I love managing. I love developing. I was being able to do all sorts of things, but I never figured I'd leave just direct tech, but I'm glad I did because it makes a big difference, and it's important.
I very much appreciate what you do, Matt. It's super valuable, super important to the health of our industry.
And I know you help a lot with our campus down there. So thank you for your help there too.
Thanks. I love supporting new developers. Anybody have any questions for Matt? Anything in his intro that sparked your interest? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so, just coming off of this, well, first of all, my name is David Morgan, and I'm currently a student at Tech Elevator in Cincinnati, or the Cincinnati campus, virtually. So I'm an aspiring developer in the .NET program. And just coming off of having completed that first capstone, it's really caused me to want to have a better understanding of really, I guess, object-oriented, and just wondered if you had any advice or recommendations on maybe good ways to learn how to think about that better. I don't know, maybe visualize it. Like for me, the problem statement is just trying to break out the different pieces and parts and kind of get a better way of how that fits together.
My best advice to you is really to build something of your own. That's not a part of requirements from anybody else. They'll be completely different from anything in the workplace. But if you pick a problem and you choose to solve it, you're gonna be able to focus on the objects and how those interact with each other. You'll start to see what's painful. You'll start to see how things will interact better. That's how I learned to program, kind of as a grade schooler to a high schooler, is 10 years of side projects, and just making little things, trying to make things that work together, finding out the things that worked. And, these weird, intimidating terms like polymorphism. I hate the word. I love the concept. I love the code. But you get used to it the more you play with it. And really, you write less spaghetti the more spaghetti you write, just because you learn to avoid it. You learn how to avoid that. And we can teach you all these theories and design patterns, etc. But until you get burned by some of these things, you don't gravitate towards it naturally. I know we have some seasoned developers in here as well that love to hear their perspectives too.
So one of the things I picked out from what you said is you write less of it, the more you write, the more spaghetti you write, the less spaghetti you write, right?
Yeah.
Like you kind of have to make these mistakes. The one critical part of it that I think is important is you have to keep learning. You have to be continually focused on improvement. I'm sorry for the whining in the background. I just don't know if there's anything I can do about it.
Yeah, I understand.
So, Ella, please. But I think that's the one of the most critical parts is if you simply just keep doing the same thing every year, then you're not going to evolve and you accumulate that knowledge. You have to kind of deliberately practice it and hone your craft.
Well, I'm definitely in the midst of getting plenty of practice.
And just so you're aware, a lot of our students up in Columbus tell us that first capstone is maybe the low point for them of, can I really do this? It's a tough thing. Taking all these little mechanics and figuring out how they actually apply to solving a larger problem. That's hard. It gets easier with practice, but you learn to write good code by writing a lot of bad code. And I'd rather do it for me than for somebody who's paying me for it.
I've shared this link before, but I highly recommend the first link in that list for anybody who's learning to code. There's just, it kind of just is brutally honest about some of the challenges that you will face. And having learned independently, I definitely went through a lot of this where I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Where you've got, at first it feels like, oh yeah, I got this. I'm in. And then you realize the scope of what you need to learn to really produce something, and you just feel crushed to some extent. Like, how could I ever manage this? And one bite at a time, right?
Yeah. And I like that you just touched on something that crushing feeling. This is not going to help you, maybe, but that crushing feeling doesn't go away. I do a lot of things on Twitter, and people are always talking about technologies that I have no awareness of, or vague awareness of, or feel horribly incompetent in, and it's just there's always plenty you don't know, breadth and depth wise. Like there's always going to be somebody who knows more than you, and learning that that's a good thing takes some time.
So I've got a question. I finished Tech Elevator Java cohort in December.
We can't hear you properly.
Very, very faint.
Is that better? No.
Little bit louder.
Somebody else can go.
That works.
Audio.
Yeah, this is much better.
That's better?
Yep.
Hold the microphone like right to my face. So I'm a December grad at Tech Elevator in Cincinnati, and I see some other December guys. So now 2 months out, I've been working on some katas and things like that, but is there like a resource for like some good projects that if you're finding trouble for inspiration, like someplace you can go for some good projects? And do you think it would be, follow up to that, it would be better to continue on in the language? Like I was Java, should I do something Java? Should I dive into something new? Is it better to play with those things or cement your skills in one?
I love the question. So there's 2 questions in there, and one was where do I get ideas on things to do on the side, and the other one was, hey, I started in Java. Should I go deeper in that, or should I broaden out to other things? The first one is, this is kind of a tech elevator specific answer, but when you got to pick which capstone you wanted to do, there were probably some other ones that looked interesting to you. I would probably reach out to your instructors, maybe for a list of those other capstone projects, and maybe take one of those on, would be my advice to you. That's what we often recommend for our students. up in Columbus. So they'll likely jump on the being able to hook you up with that if you don't have access already. But if there's something that really interests you, do that, because there's always something you might want to do instead of programming. So you want to make sure it's interesting to you if you're not getting paid to do it. Second one, should I go deeper in Java? Should I expand my breadth? I would push you towards getting deeper in Java unless you really hated Java. Just because if you're very, very new to programming, your skills are going to get rusty if you don't practice them regularly. So I would encourage you towards maintaining what you have versus trying to broaden your horizons. But both are important and valid approaches.
Thanks for that.
Hey, Matt, sorry I didn't hear earlier. I kind of joined late. In the Java program, do you guys use Spring for your API?
We still do, is my understanding, yeah.
Okay.
I'm much more on the .NET side, but I'm shadowing in Java right now. I believe our curriculum is still currently on Spring. But it's more about teaching REST and the general in-tiered architecture than any one specific technology.
Right. Right. I think it's very difficult, just from my perspective. I'm full stack, and I use Vue.js as well. But I actually developed everything with Django as the framework, and then built the front end with Vue. So I got all my REST through Django, and actually it does everything. You can schedule tasks, and you can do emails and all that stuff, automated emails and all that stuff through
That's
Django.
cool.
It's because it's a monolith, right? But
Yeah.
the downside of monoliths obviously is that when something malfunctions, everything malfunctions. So the kind of the trend right now is to move more into microservices, and obviously Vue with some maybe with some serverless Spring functions out there to do the API is really the way to go. I think. But yeah, I mean, it's a struggle to work with all the microservices and to find which tools are the best, because you can use Spring, or you could do it with Node.
Yep.
You could do you could do it with .NET, because it doesn't really matter what you're doing if it's a completely separate function.
Yeah, it's just a server.
Right, it's just server. So it's I think one of the most difficult things is picking and choosing what you want to work with, and there's new stuff that comes out every day.
Yeah, especially in JavaScript.
Yeah, and then also the difficulty of securing all of that.
Yeah, but so you talked about like monoliths versus microservices, and there's trade-offs to both of them, right? If you have one big thing that's doing everything, client, server, etc., well, that's great, except at a certain scale. But on the other side, when you split it into a couple different things, well, now you have two things that can break, and you have communication between the two that can break. There's always trade-offs in everything we do.
Right.
Yeah, people sneer at monoliths like there's never a good reason to do a monolith. And it's like, no, there's a lot of good reasons to do it.
You need to serve a site up for 10 people an hour. Yeah, do a monolith. Whatever's easiest for you.
It's easier.
So much easier.
You've traded
things happening.
You're simply trading complexity a lot of times, and it depends on where you want that complexity to be.
So you pick your complexity. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
but if you have a not complex app, if you drastically increase your infrastructure complexity, which is what you're doing with microservices, now you're essentially just adopting complexity for no particular reason whatsoever.
Well, it's like, this is how I should do it. It's like, yeah, but you're not Netflix. Do you have 20 teams of software developers laying around? Do you have time to troubleshoot all your automations when they break? Do you have time
Repeat
to
after me.
Pointing the finger? Yeah.
Complexity is how you pay for stuff, and you have to decide what you're paying for.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Pretty much, yeah. Because the more links and arrows and boxes you have on the spreadsheet, the more you have to solve them with logging frameworks and stream analytics and automation and pointing the finger and all these fun things instead of building features. So keep your scale in mind.
So Ben, I'm seeing stuff in the chat. Do you have a habit with interviews or something? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I usually, so my wall is basically a chalkboard, and I will write, I love whatever company I'm interviewing it with on there. And
I love it.
obviously it's worked very well so far.
Incredibly effective, right?
Have you ever gone to an, you know, back when we did in-person interviews where you come into I've had this happen a couple times and it just blew me away, is you walk in and the board behind the receptionist is "Welcome, Mark Schumann." And I'm like, a little bit freaked out.
Mine usually just says, "Go away, Ben Shannon."
Well, and that I had that happen once. I went to an interview. It said, "Go away, Ben Shannon." No, I went to an interview. I walked in and said, "It's welcome, Mark Schumann." I go in. The interview is really long. It was a very challenging interview, and I left and I realized it didn't say that anymore.
They update those things.
Damn.
I showed up for one a couple jobs ago where the door was locked. I was like, oh.
You do realize you invited me here at a specified time. You didn't have to do that.
You didn't.
It's not required that if you receive a resume, you know.
Yeah, no, there were
Could have
also
just let me know before I got in the car.
yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You changed your mind.
So did they directly hire you? I mean, they didn't even want to see you, and they were so much impressed by resume, and they just hired you. Is that the story?
Yeah.
I took it in that way. Yeah.
It was great. It was totally, great. It was great. Yeah.
Mhm.
Can we talk about something else now?
You're still
Why
waiting
don't
to
you be a
hear
paper
back.
cut and rub some lemon juice in it?
I have a follow-up question for, I guess, Ben or for Matt. So when you guys finish your projects, do you guys launch them? Or deploy them? Are they deployed? Like, do you use Netlify or some other services to do free deployment?
So I'll answer this because
Yeah, I was deferring to you there.
Ben has launched a project.
Yeah, so I did launch our capstone, and it was getting it deployed was trickier than anticipated. I got that part wasn't really. I didn't anticipate how difficult it would be, but yeah, that's something that if you do in your own time, like want to get it deployed, I think that looks really good for employers that you know how to take that additional step.
What in particular did you find difficult? Setting up the pipeline, or?
I think it was just I think there was just a lot of additional stuff that wasn't taught in the boot camp, and just figuring all that out. Like, it wasn't really one specific thing. It was almost just sort of, finding my bearings after boot camp, and, but luckily the instructors and everyone always happy to help. And
yeah, we are a 14-week program. We spend the first 4 weeks on like language fundamentals, object-oriented programming, testing, etc. Next 2 weeks are databases. Next 2 weeks are APIs and servers. Then we have CSS and JavaScript, and then Vue.js. And then the last 2 weeks of the program, it's the students are out building their own thing and really functioning as a small team, and it's really cool. but there's always stuff I want to add. And this is probably the number one thing I'd like to add to our curriculum is give me 2 days to teach about, client. Well, we do talk client server, but talk about hosting, talk about putting your database off of your machine somewhere where something can reach it.
Yeah.
Talk about security in the web, talk about cloud providers, talk about Netlify, stuff like that. These things are possible and easy if you know the right things to do, but we don't teach those things, and so it's definitely a growing step for students and graduates to do that. And Ben, I'm actually very impressed that you took that step. So kudos to you. And Netlify is awesome.
I mean, I know I was asking everyone for help,
Post the link,
including Michael, and just anyone who would take my messages.
Yeah, definitely
had one more
post the
week.
link in here so we can all check it out. But yes, I think launching the thing you have built is so vital. When I see a candidate and I can actually look at the work that they've done and they don't have to pull up their laptop and say, well, it's on here and I can show it to you here. They can just say, oh yeah, you should go to this URL. That's so much easier and so more, and like, shouldn't be impressive, but it just means they went the extra mile.
Mhm.
It means that they decided to learn that extra piece of the puzzle that will be critical and is an important piece of understanding for their job, and launch that software.
Yeah.
Michael. You should just clone my repo and then set up a server locally. It's same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll just
People
with
expect
my
people expect demos of any kind to be zero friction. And I don't think that was always true. I mean, I remember, I could be pitching a project, 10 years ago or a little bit more and say, hey, here's this idea, or the client says, here's this idea. You do a little bit of proof of concept. You have to haul your computer into their office. You have to show them what to install. Oh, no, nobody does it anymore. It had better be in a container at least. It needs to be super, super simple to try out.
Yeah, I definitely want to add a week to our curriculum, but the problem with that is, well, three cohorts a year, 14 weeks each, move that up to 15 weeks. Well, guess who no longer gets a vacation? So I guess that's probably why we don't. But I agree, it's really important, and pushing new grads, new developers towards DevOps is usually a win for everyone.
I have a question, Matt, if you don't mind. When you send your students out into the world, do you give them a list like, here's some stuff we weren't able to cover, and this is valuable things for you to dig into as you get interested in them?
I absolutely do. It's not anything formal, but it's, I wrote out a big old categorized list for my first cohort, and I'm like, hey, if you like .NET, if you like testing, if you like the server aspect, if you like the front end stuff, you might want to look into these things. And it was like a page worth of things. I know I have that out there on my blog at killallDefects.com. It's very unusual for like all the other stuff I have out there. It's all on software quality mostly, but I wanted that. There's so much you can't teach in such a little time, so it's like, I care about you. I want you to keep learning. You're going to keep learning. Here's what I would learn if I were you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can drop that link in the chat at some point, I think that there's a bunch of people who would probably appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's .NET specific, but absolutely we'll do that.
Okay. Even then, you could still extrapolate from there, right? Anything most things that exist in .NET, you're going to find another language doing it for a different, kind of thing, with slightly different library maybe, but it's going to have the same concepts a lot of the time.
There you go. That's in chat.
Excellent. Thank you for dropping that link, Matt.
And actually, a lot of it is applicable. And where it says link, that's Java Streams API or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually finished. Well, I didn't actually graduate, but don't tell anyone. I did everything but the final capstone for Thinkful on their data science bootcamp a few years ago. And that was on my way out. That was the one thing. We used to meet with a mentor since all online. We would meet 3 times a week. I think it's completely different now. But the one thing on the way out, you taught me how to make all the. You taught me this how to do all the statistics, how to build all the machine learning algorithms, how to train models. But you haven't taught me how to deploy it.
Mm.
Right.
He said, "What?" So I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "Just build a Flask app, and just run it there. Just pickle it and then run it there." I'm like, okay.
Well, our curriculum team would likely appreciate me mentioning that we were equipping you for that first job, right? And the likelihood of your first job already having a deployment process for their applications is pretty high. We think this stuff is important, but there's so much else that we have to teach you to prepare you for that first thing.
Yeah, that's true. But a lot of the things that they told me, oh, don't worry about web scraping because you'll have a team of web scrapers, and don't worry about you know, Y and Z because you'll have everybody to do that for you. And then now I'm a full stack developer.
Yeah, Brian, I empathize with that. I was given a job told to basically emulate Microsoft project, and they didn't even give me QA. So I understand. This is the world of smaller organizations in my experience.
So Matt, that does make me think. If I'm going to a boot camp, if I am in a boot camp right now, and I do my 14 weeks in the boot camp, and I learn all the things, what type of employer is most likely to be, not where am I most likely to actually score a job, but when I do score the job, what type of employer is best able to use my abilities at that time? Because, right, like Brian's saying, it feels like if it's a 4-person shop, it's probably not going to go that well, actually. Is that true?
It depends on what you're learning, right? I think with a lot of these languages, you can do a lot to help your team out without knowing a wide breadth of things, because you're not building something from the ground up usually, right? You're helping an existing team, or you're transitioning into somebody else's responsibilities or something like that. You've usually got a time to learn. The most extreme case I've seen in this admittedly short 1 year that I've been with the organization is we had a student graduate and get a job where somebody who's been there for a decade and a half is going to be slowly transitioning out, and he has probably a half a year or more to learn the application and the technologies involved. But that's the most extreme case I've seen. But even that is a win. You just have to make sure you're picking a good organization, a good boot camp, because they're not all amazing. You know, a lot of them have former students as teachers. You have to kind of do your homework on reviews, etc. And there are some organizations that help standardize things, but not everybody's in them. You know, so you don't have to do your homework with reviews and looking at the curriculum, etc. Talking to alumni, that kind of thing.
And I'll say this about Tech Elevator does a really great job about being transparent about all that stuff. And like, I know when I was looking for other boot camps, it was so many of them, like Matt, you mentioned, their hiring rates were like really high because they would hire on the boot camp grads to like teach a course and, you know, little workarounds like that.
Or they'll count a placement as somebody who goes back to their old job.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
That seems a little disingenuous.
Oh, it's a lot disingenuous.
I just teach the things. But yes, I agree.
So we get a lot of boot camp, either current people or grads in here, which is super exciting. We've also got some experienced people. I love the mix that we're seeing. So thank you everybody for showing up and having good questions. Matt, is there anything else? Is there stuff that you want to bring up or questions you want to ask?
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about. I touched on imposter syndrome earlier. I think it's important to understand that's going to go on throughout your career. You're going to have it early on. You're going to feel like you don't belong there. I'd been programming for 20 years by the time I graduated from college and was looking for that first job. And I still felt like I didn't belong there in my dress shirt, walking in for my interview at Verizon Business. And I just felt like a kid in an oversized costume or something, you know. It comes and goes. And as you get projects, as you get put on new teams, get promotions, etc., you're going to have it more. And then it just gradually goes down over time. I think it's important to know that it's going to be with you in some form or another. So try to do what you can with it. So if you go really extreme, you can study. If you're really freaked out about something, but even that can benefit you. When I first became a manager, I spent 3 weeks just reading whatever management books I could find. And most of them told me stuff I already knew. But still, whatever you can do to address your fears is going to help you a little bit. But just understand that they're not going to go away because they're not rational. That'd be my advice there. I also just want to mention that tech is broad. You're not stuck in a specific language. You're not stuck in a specific technology, company, or team. You can move, out of development into QA or vice versa. You can move into and out of management. You can say, you know what, I really want to teach. You can get into DevRel, developer relations, developer evangelism, stuff like that. There's a lot of things you can play with, see what you like. There's a lot of different sizes of companies, and they all act differently, and they all feel differently. So keep looking for something that you like, and understand that you're going to specialize at times, and at other times you're going to be more of a generalist. Just kind of wisdom at random, as it were. But things I've learned in my own career.
If you want, they just dropped another link to Scott Hanselman, who I think is probably one of the most respected developers, perhaps in the community today, talking about, and if you search Scott Hanselman imposter, he has not just one, but like half a dozen blog posts about that, and how he still struggles with imposter syndrome and feeling, just a little out of his league. He actually posted a video recently that I loved, and I'm gonna go back and find it. What are you gonna? You're like, I saw that one.
Yeah, I did. I shared it with our students up in Columbus. I loved it.
And he was talking about, like, he always feels like he can just barely touch the bottom. Like he's in a swimming pool and he just is trying to keep his head above water and he just barely touch the bottom, and how that is a fantastic place to be, because what that means is you're continually learning. That it means you're continually stretching yourself and making it just a little uncomfortable. The point where you get comfortable, that's actually kind of a scary place, because now you don't grow typically out of a place of complete comfort. You veg out and you just chill out. But when you have that slight level of discomfort, that's what forces you to grow each day.
Yeah, if you get comfortable, you're probably becoming obsolete.
That is too true.
Yep. I actually just lost my boss to that because she was getting comfortable and she's like, well, I really want to grow more. And so she moved on, and I got a new boss now, and like my new boss too, but miss the old one too.
Yeah.
You're always growing. You're always getting challenged. And tech always changes. So, that's never going to go away.
I used to work with guys who would brag about, how they've been doing the same thing for, 15 years or more. And it was always guys and going, oh, I never needed to learn anything that wasn't, that wasn't SQL or wasn't Oracle or whatever. And I say I used to work with those guys because, they're not in the field anymore. Yeah. You get obsolete fast.
You do. I was an expert Silverlight developer.
Silverlight.
anybody's ever, yeah,
Nice,
if anyone's ever heard of
nice.
that one.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Flash killed Silver, or well, not Slash. Chrome killed Silverlight and Flash basically by removing their plugin model, and we had to find other technologies. And well, thankfully, modern JavaScript came to the rescue and gave us, Angular and Vue and React and the like. And
Man, nothing
fun.
gives me imposter syndrome like Angular. Jeez.
Oh God.
I would have
like
WebGL.
I like Angular.
Yeah.
I like it, but it's terrifying.
They all have their ups and downs.
That's actually a good question, or a good segue to a question. Ben, is it both Bens there? The Tech Elevator grads with Vue, have you ventured over into React or Angular?
I have not.
That might be a good one to consider, if just because there's a lot of use of those two languages, especially React.
Especially React, yeah.
I've played around with React, some just like tutorials, but no deep dives or anything.
Are you looking to venture into that?
Sure.
I couldn't see who asked that. I'm sorry, I'm a little late to the game. I'm jumping into React right now, and I'm a graduate of Tech Elevator, so I would be happy to give a few quick notes on this. There's a lot of different tutorials out there and information, and React is, just like everyone's been saying, has gone through a lot of new updates, and hooks are, I don't know a lot about it, but hooks are apparently one of the newest thing. And I followed a tutorial that was about 2 years old and ran it by someone, and they said, this is good that you know how to do this, but this is not how we're doing it anymore. And I found some good tutorials. So if you want to message me privately or find me on LinkedIn, I just finished building a website the old way, and I'm about to redo it the new way. And I'd be happy to share some of what I've learned.
And rewriting something from one framework to another might be a good project too, just to see how they're different.
I'm also a recent Tech Elevator graduate. I have a project deployed that uses Next.js, which is a React framework for doing SSR and as well as server-side rendering, as well as static site generation. Which is kind of cool. What Next lets you to do is make some routes on your project statically generated and some of them not. So yeah, if you want any help with React, you can feel free to ask me too. I'm done hooks and stuff, functional, stateless functional components, stuff like that.
Sarah,
Have you thought about writing about that, Adam?
I'm particular.
I just want to give a call out to kind of everyone here who's new, because you may feel like you don't have a lot to add to the conversation, but I want to rebut that and kind of enforce that you do, because every time somebody is looking to learn something, they're looking at various sources, various tutorials, things like that. And sometimes what they really need is a newcomer's perspective. Your perspective on it, because you are new to it, is valuable, particularly to those, particularly to those who are new to it, because you can explain how it worked for you, which is going to be similar in a lot of ways to other people who are just learning. Not to mention that can oftentimes help people who are interested in that, or perhaps working on that stuff that you were trying to learn, and they say, oh, that's how a newcomer experiences this thing. Maybe I can solve these problems that they encountered, and it gives them that fresh perspective. So I just like to encourage everyone to create content anytime they feel the interest, even if it makes you a little uncomfortable. I think it is so valuable for growing yourself mentally, growing your personal brand. It's just a multi-layered benefit.
Yep. I've gotten a ton of things coming my way from writing. And it's been writing about the stuff I already know. And what happens is I'll write a post and then people comment on it. Oh, did you know about library X or something Y? And you'll have a couple new things to write about and learn that you didn't know before, or a couple better ideas, or a workaround for the hack you've been relying on, or whatever it might be. And you keep this up. And if you really are consistent, you keep writing about the same set of topics, eventually some good stuff does come your way too. I've gotten paid writing opportunities. I've gotten free tools. I've gotten that kind of thing. And that's the kind of stuff that's like, yeah, you want to give me a year subscription or a lifetime subscription for it? Sure, cool. Because I don't always want to talk to my wife and be like, hey, honey, I'd like to get this $200 software tool. She's fine with it, but there's this mental barrier, and like, oh, I get to use this for the rest of my life. Cool, sign me up. I'm happy to share good stuff about you.
It also intersects with the imposter syndrome, in the sense that, I shouldn't blog about this because I don't really know more than other people, but I've got this idea. And I've had it happen a few times where I will typically blog about a thing and nobody really reads my blog, but 3 people do ever. And one of them goes, "You're wrong. Here's why your solution doesn't actually work, or here's what you didn't think of." And so it's bad because you were wrong. But people teach you.
Yeah.
I'm okay with blogging things that are wrong.
For the longest time, I thought speaking at a user group or a conference means I have to be an expert in something. I have given a talk this week in which I learned new things by giving a broad talk. Somebody asked a very specific question. I gave the answer to the best of my knowledge, and somebody says, "No, you're wrong." And so, hey, I learned new things about caching this week. So,
oh
yeah, and that's great. The worst thing that happens is somebody says you're wrong. You get a little bit of egg on your face, and you get a little bit smarter.
Yeah.
And you're right next time.
Yeah.
So
expose your ignorance.
Yeah, and now my talk for Cincy software craftsmanship is just a little bit better because now I know to go a little bit deeper on subject X. But I think that more people who are just beginners need to talk more about their experiences. Just as Michael was saying earlier. And specifically user groups and conferences, like that beginner's perspective in the terrifyingly broad and deep industry that always changes is very, very valuable. And it's something that a lot of people don't have courage to share. So share it in writing, share it in LinkedIn posts, share it in tweets, share it in conference talks. Give us more variety and wisdom, because there are real problems with getting into this stuff. There's real problems with the accessibility of this stuff. A lot of your non-traditional students can't go through a 4-year university. We got boot camps now to really help with that, but still you have this big accessibility issue in tech that we really need to be at least talking about, but hopefully also fixing.
I had this take. I'm working on Backbone. I started in as a Backbone in 2010, and then since then I've worked in as a React, Angular also. And I found actually all of them pretty working in my cases. Actually, I mean, I liked Angular. I also like React. What I found is, like, say, React was easy to build incrementally. Suppose I have a website, I can bring in React and start building slowly. Angular is like I have to do a upfront investment in the Angular. And another problem I see that people or developer wants to, especially people coming from an MVC, ASP.NET MVC framework. What happens in MVC is that you get a controller and you can write your code in that place, like more like say fill in the less blanks. That is not true for React or Angular. Actually, there is no fill in the blank. Everything is a blank actually. So people struggle where to write. Okay, this should be my component. This should be my backend code, and what code should give call to server. Those kind of things.
Yeah.
So then you go into another term that I have used actually to learn is typing speed versus thinking speed actually. So typing speed, let's say a author, right? So let's say what is critical for an author, whether it's a thinking speed, whether it's a word power, whether to do characters, build them, and write about emotions. So that's his thinking speed. But typing speed is he can actually types. So let's say a writer can type 100 words per minute. That may not be good for him, but maybe in essential skills. So in terms of let's say React, knowing every hook, like say use local storage or use something, is kind of typing speed actually. But how to think in React will take some time, or how to think in Angular it take some time. So that part, thinking speed versus typing speed, we need to balance actually. Like for example, let's say C# is an object-oriented language, right? But I can very well write let's say procedural code in let's say C#.
Mhm.
And some languages may have some other constraint, like for example, let's say Scala, I don't want to write a loop, let's say for loop, because it's a data stuff, right? So how to write without writing a for loop? So that becomes constraint. So I have to think in Scala, and the way I think in C# is really different.
Yeah.
Knowing C# syntax is different.
Yeah.
But thinking is
And C# syntax is changing too.
Yeah,
The language is becoming more and more functional in nature too. Doesn't
I
have
have
to
a-
be, but
I have a
but
question for you, Matt.
Hmm.
I was reading your thing about like your speech for recent grads from Tech Elevator,
sure.
and you said not to learn Link's query syntax. What do you have against it? I thought it was really cool.
It's less applicable to other languages.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with JavaScript's arrow syntax,
Yeah. Very identical, pretty
yeah,
much.
very identical to LINQ, very identical to streams in Java, that kind of thing. That lambda kind of expression is something that pops up from language to language. So it's cool that Microsoft built a query language, but it's really intended for somebody who's more comfortable with SQL than with C#.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
That was
I
the
thought it
intent
was
when they
really cool
introduced
that
it.
I could do like queries on iterables. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was neat.
Yeah, it is neat. It's amazing.
I used it in one of the capstone projects just because
Yeah.
I thought it was cool when I saw it in the docs, and I was like, "Whoa!" All right. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah, but
actually,
that specific article, just real quick, Adam, that was like you're more likely to see the lambda style in real world code, which is
Yeah,
why I
that
was
makes more
recommending
sense
there.
with the popularity of JavaScript.
Yep. Go ahead, AJ.
So LINQ is more like a functional style where you are telling, like say, what to do to the compiler instead of how to do it.
Yep.
For example, if I have to find, let's say, largest number from a collection, I will, in a typical syntax, I'll write a for loop. I will create a variable and say if this is larger. But LINQ, where you are writing more like you are telling, let's say, what to do and not how to do. So that difference comes. I actually have a framework that mimics LINQ, which is called as dotless. That is in the JavaScript. I'll probably share the link. You can take a look where you can easily write a LINQ style function, a LINQ style code in JavaScript, but without having dots. I mean, there are various other functions like you probably use, let's say, Lambda, or there are other functions which mimics LINQ in the JavaScript, but they actually build objects actually. So you said dot where, dot select.
Yeah, you can do a map, you can do all sorts
map
of stuff.
and
Yeah.
the stuff.
They're just
So,
different names in JavaScript.
Different names to it.
Yep.
So a map is equivalent to select within C#, where there's a filter here.
Yep.
So there is some little bit syntax difference here, but it is more like a functional thinking approach that you follow when you start building LINQ.
I like to think about those kinds of functions as pipes. So you've got this pipe that hooks into this other thing, and it might be doing some sort of a transformation. It might be filtering some things out, but you're working with a collection of objects or an array of something, right? And you always have that array. It's not going to be null at any point in time. You're just transforming the things inside of it, shifting them around, filtering them. And there's a lot of power to structuring an application like that. And that's kind of what functional programming is about. Part of what functional programming is about. There's a lot of things in FP.
So I typically use this dotless to solve this advent of code puzzles. I hope you're probably aware. I think somebody did a session on advent of code a couple of weeks back. So I typically use this library to solve those puzzles actually.
That's cool.
That reminds me, if anybody is interested, we do have a TN Tech channel. If there's conversations you want to continue having, throughout the week, not just on Thursday afternoon, that's a place to do it. So if anybody wants that link, I'm happy to drop that in the comments here.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I'll do that. I know. So regarding Link, so when I started with .NET was kind of my first, VBNet was my first real language. And so .NET was kind of my first love in programming. And when I found Link, I was just out of my mind happy. And I too kind of wonder if part of that was because I started out as a statistics programmer. And so all about statistics is I take this data set and I transform it and I transform it again. Then I, munge it around, then I do some calculations on it. And then I smash them all together again. And that's how I still write my programs. And I think it actually creates some really nice, beautiful code. And easy to reason about, but that might just be me because of that background.
It's an acquired taste. You show that to somebody who's new to a programming language, and they're going to not know what to do with themselves, which is why we don't. But it is an acquired taste. The other thing you have to keep in mind with like all these features is like I started back when .NET didn't have generics, so you didn't have a list of T, for example. You might have a list, and you have to cast everything to an oolong tea or a mint tea or black tea or whatever you might want to call it. But you didn't have the language specific support for it. And over the 20 years, we've added Link, we've added MVC, we've added Blazor, we've added all these little things, Azure. AWS, tech changes rapidly, and you don't forget how much, you don't remember how much you're learning until you look at all the new things that have come out every year, because each year is just amazing in the amount of new stuff that comes out. And some of it's just transformational, like Link was, or generics were, or the cloud, Docker. There's some pretty crazy things that happen in our industry, and it's not going away. But it makes learning and looking at sample code harder and harder and harder the more it goes on.
You just mentioned Docker. One of my favorite YouTube channels, it's called Fireship. And most of the videos the guy makes are, he makes videos like giving a general summary of something. A couple weeks ago, I made a video on Docker explaining how to set something up. And basically, he kind of went into the basics of how to set up and use Docker for a program. But he makes a lot of high-level overviews of stuff, sometimes delving a little bit deeper. Earlier, I linked a React hooks video he made a couple weeks ago. But there's tons of topics on there. I think it's a good site for junior to intermediate. It goes kind of fast for juniors, but yeah.
Cool. Docker is one of those things I still feel a lot of imposter syndrome about.
Oh yeah.
I know enough to get my job done, and that's about it.
Yeah. I'm studying for certification right now, and
lost. Yeah.
I'm going to have to learn a little bit more about it over the next month, so that's good. But it's still, I got the concept. I know there are commands you can run at the command line. I know the benefits of it, but I don't think naturally in Docker yet.
Yes, I definitely can echo that sentiment. And it is interesting when you think about how you get to the point in the language where you feel like you can talk naturally in it or work naturally in it. Kind of amazing how we get to that point. So I know it's getting to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Matt. Or Mark, was it Mark? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think sometimes also when you don't know very much about a thing, you even frame the problems wrongly. And Docker is great. Until you really understand Docker, you're asking the wrong questions. And short story, thing I had happen recently, had a monolithic app where, because reasons, it made sense to turn it into sort of microservices. And one of the microservices was just begging to be Dockerized rather than just a standalone app. And that microservice had a lot of configuration to it. And I was just beating my head against the wall of how do I get all this configuration into the Docker bubble? Wrong question. The Docker bubble was already consuming a service that was centralized, and that service could just tell it what to do instead of it carrying around its own configuration. And I just went, of course. And it was just I was framing exactly the wrong question and trying so hard. How do I get a whole database in there, and how do I make it secure, and how do I? Nope, wrong question.
Yeah.
And so you don't even know that you're asking the wrong question when you're starting out.
Yes, I hear people get that a lot with Git as well, where it's like,
how do I make Git do? Yeah. Don't.
Right. It's kind of, there's that, but then there's also a lot of times in order to find the specific command you need to do the thing, you have to already know that you need to do that thing and know it by that specific name in order to find it. So we are coming to the end of our scheduled time. Now, Matt, I don't know if you want to hang out a little longer or what your schedule is like.
I can hang out a little bit longer. I'm kind of monitoring Slack for messages from our students, but I'm fine to hang on.
So while we're kind of talking about that, you put it in the Slack, but I want to go ahead and put it, I'm sorry, the chat, but I want to go ahead and give you an opportunity to say it for anybody who's watching the video afterwards. So anywhere where people should follow you or your anything like that, your blog, stuff like that.
So you can follow me on Twitter at integerman, so INTEGERMAN. You can send me a connection request on LinkedIn. I'll usually accept connection requests, though I appreciate knowing where they came from. So if you want to add a note, that's helpful.
Always add a note. No, always
add a note. I'm just telling you right now, I'm not as picky as I used to be.
That's fair.
If you're interested in software architecture, I might as well plug a book I'm working on, which is you can find out details on at newdevsguide.com. And that's an introduction to software architecture and scalability, tentative title. But I'm looking to self-publish that on Amazon and print on demand in the fall. Just with kind of, as a new programmer, as a new technology professional, how do I understand what everybody's talking about? What's the scalability stuff? What's horizontal scaling? What's vertical scaling? All these types of things that you sort of need to understand to not feel freaked out in the workplace.
I'm excited for your talk, Matt. I just want to say that.
Yeah.
Sorry if I cut you off there.
Oh, you're fine. I was trailing off anyway, but yeah, I'm looking to push something out in the fall. And this talk that Michael's referencing is at Software Craftsman, Cincinnati Software Craftsmanship, among other places. But I'm kind of putting it together for like all the visuals I need to create for the book. It's like, well, if I'm making these visuals, let's put them in my slides too. Let's talk about this. Let's get people's opinions of it before I make the investment of my time in writing the book. So it's a lot of meat in that talk, a lot of high level concept stuff, but it's important stuff and it's a broad topic. So excited about that, but look for it in the fall, I guess. And thanks, Adam.
Excellent. Yeah. If you all aren't don't know, you can check out Cincinnati Software Craftsmanship. We publish all our events on Meetup and also on LinkedIn, and we do on Twitter as well, though we don't get much traction there, to be honest.
I think I give you about half.
Clearly doing something wrong. I do appreciate that, Matt. Thank you. Now, is that, are you independently publishing
Yeah,
that?
I
Matt?
I actually had a formalized written up book publication proposal, kind of a thing that I'd been talking with a book publisher I really respect, and I had written it all out, and I couldn't bring myself to hit send, and there was just something about losing control of my baby, but also an external schedule potentially taking me away from the time I needed to help students out and things like that. And like, look, I'm on an alternating rotation right now where I'm going to be teaching in the summer, but not in the spring and fall. Let's use the spring to learn JavaScript, or not JavaScript, Java. Relearn Java. My first job was actually a Java developer job. Let's get some of this talk out there, get the content together in the fall, write the book, publish it. Hopefully, written most of it by the fall. But you know, that's sort of my thinking. I feel like I lost track of the original question, but hopefully that answered it.
No, it was whether you're publishing independently. That was the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, publishing
So,
it independently for sure.
That's pretty cool.
It felt like the most responsible thing to do for our students and my employer, and my own mental health.
Yeah, which is super important. Let's just make that really clear.
Yep, because it's not about making money or something like that. It's I care about something. I want to get it out there. Be nice to have something out there that people can rely on. I don't have a good book recommendation on software architecture for new programmers. I have a lot of really good complex stuff, but nothing for new programmers.
My understanding is that people don't write tech books for the money, from what I've heard. That's pretty much your value, your dollar per hour wage on that is generally pretty low.
Yeah.
Like academic books. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But anytime you're writing or talking about something, you're going to be a lot better off on that topic than you were before. So it's always a good idea. And people don't realize this when they're getting into speaking, but you can submit a proposal for a talk and not have the expertise you got to give the talk. You can have the idea of it. You can have some vague like it's true. I could say, hey, I really want to talk about software reliability and application reliability and redundancy. And somebody says, great, that sounds awesome. You're giving the talk in 3 months. And I'm like, okay, what should I learn and what should I talk about? What's important to share? But that really is how it works a lot of the time. So pick something that interests you, that you have some familiarity with, but are not yet an expert. Unless you are an expert in something, in which case go and do it.
I just like you're saying, if I tried to calculate the pay for my speaking career so far, it's like definitely negative. Let's be clear.
Oh yeah. But I've always looked at speaking in the public, at least since 2 years ago, as preparing for a potential career or late career in education. Right.
Awesome.
I've been building skills I was thinking maybe next year, maybe this year, I might get into teaching. Yeah, no, last year turns out. About this time last year, I went to lunch with my former boss, and we did lunch like once every year. I'm just like, hey, if I wanted to get into teaching at some point, what should I work on? And last year she says, you're ready. I'm like, what now? Because you don't feel ready. And she encouraged me to come in and interview. I did. And I actually found I had to give a little presentation, like a 15-30-minute presentation on teaching a new programmer arrays. And I'm like, I really love this teaching this concept and structuring this so that a new programmer can get it. Somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience, how do you take a simple concept, structure it so it can be understood without talking about all these other concepts, and how you build layers and layers and layers on top of things. And I actually knew I really wanted the job just from giving a practice presentation to my wife and seeing her get that, and so for me, like, it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to go actually give the interview. I was far less worried about that than I was talking to my wife, and just I wasn't worried she wasn't going to appreciate it. Just I wanted her to understand it. And it's like, okay, this is the right thing for me to do. I love managing. I love the team I'm investing in. I love the products I'm investing in. But this type of an opportunity doesn't come often for me. I'd worked with Tech Elevator grads in the past. I really love the quality of students that we produce. And so that, like, I didn't want to work anywhere else. And so it's sort of just this weird alignment of weird things that just came together last year. It was cool. I'm glad I did it.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
So I have
Anybody-
to ask.
Go ahead, Matt.
Is anybody here working on anything fun on the side? Because I love hearing about side projects.
Anybody?
I don't know if it
I
counts.
work on stuff on the side, but I don't think it's the kind of stuff that you're talking about, Matt. Go ahead, Mark, please.
Yeah, I don't know if it counts as a side project, because for a long time it was the project, and then I'm like, yeah, I should do something I get paid for too. But in the last year, I've developed a configuration change monitoring system that I call Blue Herring, and that's the thing that I turned into a microservice. It was a monolith starting out. And I realized that the part that lives on the client site that does the scanning of your configuration of things, guess what? That should not be the mothership, because you want to control that thing. You want it to be in a bubble. You want it to be insulated. Oh, that's Docker. And so this thing just periodically scans the configurations of the things you care about, uploads the results to the mothership, and the mothership is constantly doing diffs on all of that and saying, hey, by the way, do you know that SQL Server just dropped a view? That sort of thing. And then when something fails, you can go, oh, looks like the SQL Server dropped a view. You know what changed. So that's the essence of the system.
I think that counts as a side project. Yes.
It's not quite. It's like it's ready for me to use. It's great for me.
Yeah. Side projects are for you. Newsflash, right? Even they can die a horrible death in an incomplete state. Guess what? They're serving you.
Mm-hmm. Although my intent is for the world to use this. The world will like this. The world will be able to take care of its things better and not lose track of things that change. And they might even like give me money for that, which would be like kind of awesome.
Sounds pretty awesome, yeah.
It's all .NET.
Yeah.
I started collaborating with a friend on this who was really immersed in open source world, but he actually got more interested in his music, and so I ran with it from there. And I just work with .NET shops, and so I started implementing in .NET, and then I realized more and more bits of it were very Azure friendly, so it became very Azure centric. Yeah. So
I'm going through a bunch of Azure certifications right now. And so it's like, my side projects are slowly morphing to Azure just so I can play around with these things. And,
oh, yeah. Yeah, totally.
I mean, I've got a lot of Azure experience. It's just the certifications force you to be broad, which is sort of the point of them and the value of them in my experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I technically have certifications. I did like the Security Plus exam in 2002. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking for.
Mark.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. What else? What else are we working on?
I occasionally work on my React project. It's a link shortener where you can change the social media previews.
Yeah.
I have it deployed so I can show employers, we're HR people, which is kind of cool.
That's a cool project too, because it's easy to explain. It has a few moving parts. You presumably got a database that you're tracking. The full link and your shortcut. Yeah, that's cool. It integrates well with other things.
I used Cloud Firestore for it, and then I used Vercel to host it, so nothing costs anything, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
At least for me, because I don't want to spend money on this stuff.
Oh yeah. I've got a tolerance for how much I'll spend, and that grows over time.
Yeah.
But I totally get it.
I had two.
I'm checking this out right now. It looks pretty interesting. I'm sorry, who is talking?
Right. I had two side project. One was the .list library, which I was able to publish. Another side project I had was to create the word problems in the maths for my son. Let's say random word problems. So like I have 2 chocolates and somebody give me 4 chocolates. How many chocolates I have now? So I want to create a random generator and then give option, okay, give only. But that did not finish. So once in a while, I go back to that and try to write a new generator that can generate that question. But it's a good project. I believe that it will be helpful for many people. I hope it will see one day I will be able to publish it on GitHub. Let's see.
Awesome.
I love hearing this stuff. It's sort of, I guess, why I do what I'm doing now. So that's cool.
I think I'm probably gonna wind this down in the next few minutes here. Is there anything else anybody wants to say or questions they want to ask? Anybody doing anything exciting this weekend?
I'm doing a take-home project, and actually, I kind of have a question.
Yeah.
So they gave me a XD file for Adobe XD, and I'm going over like what I'm supposed to do for this. And they got like the text things, and it says they have like font sizes, and then they have leading, and then they also have track, and I don't know what that means. And I can't find any CSS properties that correspond with that. And I looked up what those are in design, and it makes sense. It has to do with like spacing between letters, but I don't know what to do. I'm kind of concerned.
Is that a kerning thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Here.
Weird.
Yeah.
Usually you don't tweak that so much in code directly. That's more of a design thing. So you might see that in the logo or something like that.
It's
But
got it for like
you don't often
the headlines, like the H1s, the H2s, the H3s. They specified like the leading and the track for all of these, and I don't know what to do at all. I don't know.
I have no context for that because
Alright.
I don't even know anything about Adobe XD. Maybe others do.
Yeah. All right.
You might want to reach out to a designer on that one.
They said I can email them with questions, so maybe I'll do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good.
That is a totally understandable question.
Yeah.
Yes. Cool.
Well, Michael, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed this. I don't often get to do this during the workday, and this is fun.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's been a pleasure. You've done a great job, and I think we so much good stuff every week in here, and this one is no exception. So I really enjoy it, and I appreciate everybody for showing up and enjoying it with me because that makes it even more fun. So, well, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now, and we'll shut this down.